I will call the Tuesday, August 3rd Finance Committee meeting to order.
Yes, I have Sullivan, Ramsey, and Olson present in person. We're expecting Mulder Cesar to join via Zoom.
First item is approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
There's a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of having signify by saying aye. All those opposed, and the motion carries.
Mulder Cesar has.
Okay. Next item is audit of the bills. Is there a motion?
Recording in progress.
So we have both regular purchase order items and the credit card charge. You're aware of that. Any discussions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And can you hear Luke?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the audio part. For some reason, it's not working.
No. All right, all those, so all those opposed, motion carries 3 or 4. First item is bids and quotes. Item number 1, update and possible direction on award of 2 bids to Nelson Excavating Sun LLC for Middleton Branch stream bank stabilization bid work. Do you have anything to add other than what's in the notes? Just that this isn't going to happen until FEMA hires a contractor to do the environmental assessment.
Yeah, from our discussion with FEMA, they could not guarantee that we'd be in a position to start the work beginning of summer of next year. They said it's typically an 8 to 12 month process, but it depends when issues arise. And so our feeling after that call was that we should reject these bids because we don't want to be in a situation where we're not able to proceed and we're past the window for the contractor. And once we have a better idea of the FEMA timeline and process, and that's getting close to wrapped up, then go off. Sean Stowski's been taking the lead on this. He is on the call. He's available to give more information for questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Sean?
Do we know how much does it cost for us to, for that, first of the photo and all these bids and some of the staff time? And I think it's very unreasonable to ask these guys to, hold it, after 23, right?
Well, we would have to, if we canceled the bid, we would have to rebid everything at some point in the future. I don't think we're asking anybody to hold their pricing. It's just that because it's not workable in the near future, either for this year or for all of 22, the only thing we can really do is reject all the bids and put it out for bid again, probably December of 22, January 23. Is that what people's thinking on is?
Yeah, I think if everything goes well, there's a possibility the work could be done in 2022, but we don't know that at this point. So I think the recommendation is reject the bids now. If we get to spring of next year and it looks like it's possible to do work yet in 2022, we can rebid, but probably more likely we're looking at bidding for work in 2022.
And is anybody talking to Nelson Excavating about our situation?
I defer to Sean on that question. And Sean, are you able to hear the conversation? I just want to make sure the audio is working.
Yeah, it's a little, I don't know, modulated or choppy, but I understood it well enough.
No, I have been talking mostly with our
Sean,
consultant
we
at
can't hear you. Uh,
Oh,
I can
I'm
hear you,
not-
John. I think the
I'm
people
not
on-
muted.
Yeah, I think people on Zoom can hear, but I don't think that the people at the chambers can hear us on Zoom from those of us who are participating via Zoom.
Oh, shoot.
And people in chambers are coming across on Zoom is very garbled.
Right.
Yeah. Shoot. Well, that's going to be harder then. I don't have any way to type. Um, Good to know. Unfortunate. Of course, now I can't hear Bill either.
Oh, they're on mute, it looks like.
Oh,
Here
oh, now they're back.
we have a $900,000 from the county. I don't know what the did by that we use that money. So we are looking at $1.5 million here, which is we already have. And I don't know how much FEMA is going to get, but we don't want to lose that much. I don't think anybody wants to.
I don't think that's an issue at this point.
Well, we don't know that.
So I'm assuming that Sean can let us know about that as well. That
Yeah,
both Dane County and DNR are understanding that people work in mysterious ways and would be accommodated to us for that.
Well, DNR did agree up to 22, but I never, it's already been.
I just restarted my thing to see if that would work.
I don't know. Yeah, is my audio coming through at all in the council chambers? I'll take that as a no.
Bruce said he also contact you. But it was like-
Oh. He must have just tried to call because I was trying to figure it out.
Hopefully to turn my speaker on.
Yeah, why don't you do that? Everything keeps quitting on me. That might sound fun. Hey Drew, it's Christy. I'm having some audio issues and Wirecast just keeps quitting on me. So that's what's going on. I think so, because I haven't been able to hear anybody. Just so weird. Yeah, I know. That'll be next. Yeah, I'll do that now. Let's see if that does anything.
Do those of us on Zoom have any idea
Right.
what's going on?
It sounds like the
Okay,
video
okay,
gal
thanks for-
is trying to troubleshoot on the phone.
All right, Drew's gonna be on his way. We're gonna restart the computer.
All right.
Well, Mr. Barco, Not today, because it notes it's not on the screen. too,
Um,
And I think Marco is moving for the sound.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, okay.
Now it all of a sudden, that part worked.
Oh,
Okay, Sean.
Sean, can you
so,
try again?
yeah, is Zoom audio working? Are you picking me up? Oh, wait, now I've been muted. Okay. Now is it,
The sound system part's not quite working.
now is it picking me up? Huh. Let me try to mute. Anything now? Bill, council chambers? Nothing.
Place to act upon opening of bids. So we need to make a decision on these bids.
So
So
there's a reason for,
what's,
so there's a reason for.
there's a reason for action. We've held it over a couple meetings, but we're at the point where we need to act. And I think there's enough unknown that we need to reject these bids, start the FEMA review process for the environmental assessment, and then rebid when we know more. Sean's giving me a thumbs up, so I said that correctly.
That's the flags that you use.
Yeah.
He can probably hear us, but.
Yeah, I think
I think we're waiting to make sure that he understood that. They have talked to Middleton and also Brittany's concerned that we have to award grant. From the DNR and Dane County.
conversation with technical public works and conversations directly. My understanding, I think both agencies are very aware of the issue and that it's not something that we created in the process. But they don't want to have confirmation beyond 2020.
I think maybe we can get this resolved, but get some confirmation, but I think we have enough to. Is there a motion to reject the bids? I make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
For any other discussion? So you're gonna, Sean somehow gonna tell us whether or not the two grants are still gonna be
Yeah,
active.
I'll see if I can get that information from Sean prior to the council.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? And the motion carries. Item 1 under miscellaneous is consideration and discussion of selecting a consultant for environmental assessment of the Branch Creek Stream Bank and Trail Bridge projects. Your motion. And this is to get FEMA.
Yeah, so we're looking for direction on if we should allow FEMA to take the lead on hiring and working with the environmental consultant, or we have the option of hiring our own. That recommendation is to let FEMA do that process. The advantages of that is FEMA that way. And I think there are some advantages of FEMA having selected someone they're comfortable throughout the process. If we go on and hire a consultant on our own, we need to front the cost. We can apply for reimbursement once there's a approved project, but that would be at the end of the process, and it would be limited to 87.5% funding rather than full funding. We have our local share. The other thing, which is an intangible, but if we hire our own consultant, there could be additional time from FEMA to review our selection process, as well as reviewing the final work product. The potential advantage of hiring a consultant is if they're working directly with us, perhaps they're kind of keep their feet to the fire as far as moving through the But given where we are in the timeline, our thought was it's probably going to be difficult to be ready to do something for next summer anyway. And it makes sense when FEMA takes the lead, they're familiar with the process, have done front the cost, and we'll try to keep pushing and working with the consultants to get it done this time.
And I think that's probably a good approach to things. Help me understand how FEMA is going to charge this project back, right? So is that something they're just going to say, okay, well, you know what, here's $100 to do this. No, we had to pay 10 for our BA. So your net is 90. Is that something that they're going to do? I don't think it's because they're magnanimous that they're going to do this study for us. So what does that mean in terms of what they would potentially give us?
Yeah, so my understanding is that if FEMA hires the consultant, they pay for that cost 100% FEMA, and that's outside of our project budget. That's just part of FEMA's cost to doing the review, similar to their staff that have been reviewing our project. We have the option, if we want, to hire our own consultant. If we do that, at the end of the process, once we have an approved project, we can apply for reimbursement of the 87.5% of that cost, but that would come at the end. My understanding of reading the guidelines is that if FEMA determines there's an environmental assessment required, it's their obligation to have an environmental assessment done. I think they provide this option that the local community can hire their own consultant. And some communities may choose to do that. And if it's a small project, defined area, maybe there's some advantages of doing that to do it a little quicker. But for something that's complex, I think that it probably makes sense to have FEMA once a row. But it shouldn't affect our project reimbursement. FEMA is paying for this cost, that's on them, and that doesn't affect the bottom line. So,
Right.
Any other discussion? So, is there a motion? I'll make a motion that we. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Two is American Rescue Plan funding option concepts for stormwater infrastructure projects. Is this Sean that we can talk to?
Yeah, I can introduce it, but I'm not going to be able to answer questions as well as Sean, certainly. So similar to at the last meeting, we had provided a list of items of the assistance to individuals, primarily and equity-related items. What you have in your packet is a list of potential stormwater infrastructure projects. And at this point, this is just informational. We're trying to give you information on some of the projects that are potentially eligible for funding under ARPA. This has been reviewed by Water Resources Management, and my understanding is that they've tried to identify them in potential priority order. And part of the consideration was whether or not there's alternative funding. So trying to look at projects that we don't have another funding source for, like TIF or from Texas and so on. So it has funding. At this point, when you wanted to provide that, get any feedback, and I think the thought process is that if there are projects on this list that would be potentially moving forward, that's something that can be discussed as part of the budget process. But if there's any initial feedback or questions, try to address those.
This one should be the one that is your.
The only question I had on here was the South Pond dredging. That thing's been kicking me around stormwater utility for 2 years now. And my recollection is that we determined that it really didn't need to be done. There may be some cleanup for that initial forebay. But actually where the but that the pond itself didn't really need to be dredged. So I'm not sure why that's on the list. Get someone to help us with that at some point. And I understand this is just a laundry list.
And And my recollection with the Celtron was that I think that they determined there wouldn't be as large of a benefit as they originally thought, which made it a lower priority project. I think there's still a thought that some work should be done at some point. But I can't speak to how that compares to the other ones. There's something to follow up with Sean or Eric and the public works.
Because at this point, it's not a priority of utility. So just to get some clarification on it, but we can get forward. So does anybody have any questions about any of these projects that are on here?
Not about these projects, but will there be other infrastructure projects related to that? Would be part of this also,
I think I'm trying to answer that. Under the ARPA, the available infrastructure categories are water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and broadband access. Other things like roads are only eligible to the extent they're required for the other types of infrastructure. And I give an example of if you're replacing a water main and repair that was. From our initial review, I'm not aware of any
Yeah, I know.
It's
always scary for mine as well.
that's needed that we don't have funding for utilities. We have started looking at some energy efficiency options for utilities. It looks like that would be eligible. And one of our major electrical users is in our water pumping, and we could have some energy efficiency projects that will help cut down some of our energy costs. I know Kelly is trying to work with the utility staff to try to.
So, I mean, just to put a finer point on that, to the extent that we can lower the operating expenses of utility, right? That's almost an equivalent of a tax cut. So I think we should probably look at something, those efficiency issues, in great detail, right? I know it's not something everybody can get all excited about, but with water utility efficiency,
Exactly.
there's no specific user group that doesn't get an impact.
and increase that feedback every year now.
Right.
Anything we can do.
Right.
That makes sense.
Any other questions? Right, unfortunately, none of these are, none of these are gonna hit the front page of the but I think there's.
Right.
I think anywhere we can build efficiencies into existing systems that we have, that in effect becomes a tax cut for everyone.
The main thing is the federal government is still issuing more clarifications. We don't really have to jump at it. We have to, we got time. And I think this list is good, but as you add up these numbers, we have $2.1 million and these add up to more like $12 or $13 million right here.
All right. Moving on. Item number 3 is update on second quarter of 2021 investment reports.
Yeah, this is your quarterly investment report update. No action required, just informational. There hasn't been much change in the overall return of the city's portfolio over the last quarter. Our weighted average return for yield is at 1.05%. That's primarily being driven by the investments that we have that are outstanding that are shown on page 2 of the report with the various CDs, federal agencies, and municipal bonds that we have outstanding. As some of those mature, we are expecting our yield to decline over time because the reinvestment options are going to get a lower interest rate. We're expecting hoping to get some additional funds in August from our August tax settlement, and we'll also be getting our bond proceeds in. And later this year, we have some investments that are maturing. We've got about $2 million maturing in September, another $2 million in October. So we'll be looking to place some new investments. If you look at the investments by maturity on the bottom left corner of the front page of the report, you can see that we've got a good amount in cash and invested in the 1 and 2 year time frame. And that's a reflection that as interest rates were declining, we were shortening the term of our portfolio. I think as rates have on the longer end are a little bit higher, as we had discussed previously, we have some options to pick up some yield looking in the 3, 4, 5 year range. We set targets that limit no more than 15% of the portfolio invested in 4 or 5 years, 25% in 3. We're well below those. I don't see us hitting those maximum targets, but I think as we look at investing funds and looking at the cash flow, we may be placing some investments in that time frame, pick up what we can, offer yield for funds that we don't need immediately. Everyone's kind of speculating on how fast interest rates might move and how quickly the Fed will move. But from what I'm hearing, it seems like there's pretty much a consensus that we're not going to see big changes in 2022. And people are kind of looking at 2023, 2024. And at least for the next couple of years, if we can pick up some additional yield by going out a little further, I think there's an opportunity there. And just to give an idea, just looking at where the treasury rates are right now, 1 year treasury is at 0.06, 2 years at 0.18, and 5 years at 0.68. None of those are great, but the short-term money for a year and less is paying almost nothing. So where we can, I think it makes sense to pick up a little bit of yield and then just keeping funds available so that when you start to move. You have to answer any questions.
Do we need to look at another investment class? Trying, I mean, we purposely limited what we can do to some of the more conservative items. Are there more aggressive items that are still within our allowable risk parameters for municipality?
There aren't a lot of options out there. By state statute, we're pretty limited in what we can invest in.
Right.
One area that we haven't gone into that I think there's some flexibility for would if we were to do high grade corporate debt. I'm not sure that I would want to go that direction. I can certainly take a look at it and provide an update in future meetings. But you know, there's kind of a rule of thumb with investing is if you don't want to sacrifice quality to go after additional yield, at least with municipal funds. So my thought is I think that we can pick up a little bit more yield by going on a little longer term. And if we have the cash flow to do that, I'd be more comfortable with that rather than moving into corporates or other investments that we make quite as big.
The federal agency class here, that includes the federal home loans and mortgages.
Yeah. Federal Home Loan Bank is one of the ones that issues regularly. We do have some investments which I would include that under federal agencies. And some of the investments that we had purchased earlier this year, we did a couple of callable investments with Federal Home Loan Bank going out for 5 years. There is the potential that those could be called, but that could give us some projected yield. And if they're called, then we have the ability to go out that.
Any other questions for investment? All right, so item 4 is update on the second quarter general fund financial report.
Yeah, and this again, there's no action needed. This is just in here for informational purposes. We've got the year-to-date actuals included through June. There is a column for the projection, especially on the expenditure side. Most of the projections, as you see, are still indicating what was budgeted. As part of our budget process, when we ask the departments for their budget requests, we're also asking them to provide their projections department by department. And when we get that in later this month, we'll have more specific projections on the expenditure side. The major things that we know that we're watching at this point, on the revenue side, we have first and second quarter room tax returns in. Second quarter was far better than first quarter. But we're still being cautious in our projection and projecting that we may not hit our budget target. And the big question there is going to be what happens this fall and now with the Delta variant. We're just trying to be conservative and not over anticipate. We know the school resource officer, because we do not have that position in place and the agreement in place for the last school year, that you will have a revenue shortfall there. That will be offset by savings in the police department vacancies. There's some updated projections across the licenses and permits just based on activity to date. But the net result of all of this right now is that we're projecting that we're going to be pretty close to a break even, possibly a small surplus in the general fund. We'll know more when we get information from but if anything, I would expect that we may find some areas where departments are trending under budget and we may have some savings that are taking more projections. So it looks like we're on target, a good budget. Don't know yet, we'll have a small surplus if possible.
And just for clarification, small surplus means about $8,000.
Yeah, I think if you look at the projection right now, we're at about $8,000. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if that grows somewhat. Typically, when we get the department projections, that's not items where their savings or other transition for the results. But nothing major that we're looking at this point.
Okay. Any questions about the year-to-date performance?
Yeah.
At this
That's what I was
point,
gonna
it's
offer.
past 7 o'clock, and finance is still going to be in session.
Yeah, this is Robert. I'd like to call the Personnel and Finance Committee's meeting jointly to order. Ryan,
Everyone is present.
fantastic. So. Okay, so we have two major topics on our agenda. And the first one of the major topics is the meeting minutes from last meeting. Everybody had a chance to review them, and I would love to hear a motion from somebody for personnel.
I'll make a motion. Just for a minute.
For personnel, is there a motion to sign in? Any discussion for finance?
Any discussion for personnel? Hearing none. For personnel, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
For finance, all in favor of accepting?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay. You're right, the motion does carry. Thank you. Item 1 under miscellaneous, authorization to fill a vacant electrical inspector position. Like somebody is moving up in the world and that leaves a gap here, huh?
Yeah, actually, Jim would talk about this. He's on vacation right now. Jim Solinger, our inspection manager, on vacation right now. Our electrical inspector and facilities manager has tendered his resignation. He had been aggressively recruited by a nearby city and he ended up making an offer that he couldn't refuse. So he will be leaving us shortly. This is a request to replace that position.
Okay. From personnel, do I hear a motion one way or another, I guess,
I will make that motion.
to authorize to fill the vacant electrical inspector position?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second. For finance, there's a motion. The second.
Any discussions or questions for personnel?
For finances and discussion. Hearing none for finance, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No, for finance carries.
Same thing for personnel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes. I think we can move on to adjournment for tonight. Do I hear a motion from personnel to adjourn?
I will make the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second. For finance, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor for personnel, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
For finance, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries for finance.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be using the same Zoom for the council meeting. We're going to be pausing the recording and working on the audio issue and trying to get that resolved with council.
At 7:30, I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Common Council for August 3rd, 2021 to order. And the first item on the agenda is the roll call. Bill Laurie.
West,
Present.
Sullivan.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Ramsey. Burke.
Present.
Kuhn.
Here.
Nelson. Bizarre.
Here.
Here.
All present.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the public comment. This is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and we start with Kermit Covey.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Gurdeep Brar and all present, virtually or not. Happy to be part of this hybrid meeting. The consequences of climate change are growing. The frequently stated need that we have to get things happen within 10 years to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. And that challenge does not mean we can wait 10 years and then start. We need to continue to build on what has been done and do what still needs to be done. And so I and others who are concerned about the climate change and its consequences want to encourage the good steps Middleton is taking and support good ideas, ask where other good ideas disappeared to, or help encourage them to get put back on the agenda, and suggesting that we make sure that we are looking for ways to do things better with less fossil fuel and less greenhouse gas emissions for the city as a municipal operation and for the city as a community. So we need to adapt. We need to make changes to deal with the fact that climate change is already happening and extreme weather is unavoidable to an extent. And we need to mitigate. We need to find ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reduce climate change to avoid as much as possible of the consequences. So in that context, I want to express support and approval of the resolution 2021-39 supporting a Public Service Commission of Wisconsin Office of Energy Innovation grant application to explore the feasibility of a renewable electric microgrid to serve buildings in Middleton. That has benefits both for resilience and adaptation to consequences of climate change, as well as by virtue of being renewable, or leading to renewable energy, helping mitigate climate change. I also want to voice my support of having the city ensure that stormwater and infrastructure projects are developed, and that those projects that are on the agenda for tonight be sure to factor in the increasing number and intensity of extreme weather events, designing systems that meet the old historical standard of however many 100-year floods, when in the future, what used to be 100-year or 500-year flood is perhaps going to be a 10 or 50-year flood, calls us to adapt creatively and to find ways to protect our infrastructure by building to cope with the seriousness of the challenges that are going to happen I'm wanting to ask and hope that there's some positive answer regarding the ARPA project proposals for technology and energy infrastructure. At the last Common Council meeting, there was reference to solar arrays at pumps number 6 and number 8, with a promise that the proposal would be included in the agenda for this Common Council meeting, August 3rd. And regrettably, I was not able to find those details in the agenda.
Comment, your time is up. Please wrap up. Thank you.
Okay. And again, for the building projects, please make sure that we make them as clean and energy efficient with solar arrays and EV charging and the like, because what we build now, we're going to be living with 10, 20, 30 years from now, and we can't build bad. We have to build better. Thank you.
Thank you, Kermit. Who is next, Bill?
Was that Kara Randall?
Okay. Okay, so the next one is please identify yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Kara Randall. I just identify myself. I've been a lifelong Middleton resident. I want to comment about the recent Rock the Ramp and the Middleton Maury Airport. I live and have grown up 2 miles from the airport and have been thrilled by the airplanes flying over my house since I was little. And just a few years ago, I've become involved in aviation, and my first experience was at the Capital Flight Rock the Ramp event 4 years ago. And I've been so pleased just to see the 2 operators on our Middleton Maury Airport just committed to safety in aviation, education in aviation, and also concern for the environment through Maury Airplane Company and Rock the Ramp with their charitable action. I went to the Rock the Ramp event. It was just phenomenal to see how Matt and Jade Hofelt and their staff, prepared for every contingency, having the fireworks, the, honor flight for the veterans as their charity. It was really moving to see that as part of, Middleton, the good neighbor city. It was really creating an opportunity for families to come. There were non-aviators there. The children were oohing and aahing to see Maury Airplane Company work with Capital Flight in providing a safe environment. And I just can't reiterate how, valuable and what an asset this airport is in our community, and that we have such concerned companies that want to make sure that aviation is a viable part of our city, and that it also provides other things like education. And it's actually motivated me to, as a love of the Pheasant Branch Conservancy, to be able to do some work on the airport towards sustainability and maintaining the waterways. So it's just a collaborative thing, and I just want to commend Matt and Jade and their entire staff for what they created for our community and for Rock the Ramp.
Thank you, Kara. Okay, so who is next, Bill? Please raise your hand if you want to speak. I don't see any raised hands here. Do you have anyone?
I don't have anyone else on the list. Is there anyone who has called in that would like to speak?
Anyone who is on the telephone would like to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, please identify yourself and you have 3 minutes.
I am Robert Bartholomew. As we know, a major point of friction between Middleton and the township is the airport frequent flight patterns over heavily populated places and school areas. This problem will become much worse with any airport expansion. There is a relatively simple, safe, and effective solution, which is to implement a right-hand turn flight pattern, which brings the flights over agricultural lands. The right-hand turn pattern is an FAA-approved practice at 17 Wisconsin airports, done as a noise abatement procedure. When unfortunately, the frequent and daily overflights from Middleton Airport are not really working well as a noise abatement procedure. If implemented, all runways will be the right-hand turn to avoid conflicts, contrary to some public statements. One objection is that pilots sitting on the left side may have to look to the right to beyond any airport obstructions to check for any planes on the right. But a left-hand turn requires the turning of one's head to the left over one's shoulder to check for any planes on the left side. Those situations are something we all experience when driving, particularly when changing lanes. Some may be uncomfortable with a new pattern, but a skilled and intelligent pilot who is able to fly a plane can be able to make the transition. A pilot flying from the Middleton airport to one of the 17 airports makes the adaptation. Why not here? There will be multiple means by which pilots, both those familiar or not familiar with the airport, will be made aware of the specific pattern circumstances. Middleton has established itself as progressive. Here's an opportunity to work cooperatively with the townships to make a position progressive, positive, progressive change as it does other projects and will want to do in the future. Some associated directly with the airport may resist this beneficial change because it is a change. If it is done safely and effectively at other airports, why not here? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So the next one is Joe G. Joe, go ahead, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, fine.
Please.
Thank you very much. I really want to support Bob's comments he just made on the right-hand turn out of the airport. The FAA does not mandate a left-hand turn. They say you can go left, right, or straight on. They favor a left-hand turn, but say that when there are obstructions or areas where you want to use noise abatement, then go straight or go right. You have to fit in with the community. And I don't think the airport understands that. I don't think they understand that they have to work within the community. I suggest that we start flying the planes to the right as soon as possible to take the noise off of all of the citizens that live around the city of Middleton. Take the noise to the city and see how many people, when the survey comes out, anywhere can support airport expansion. They will understand and hear the noise, and then they will say, this is not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else who may want to speak at this time, please raise your hand, or if you're on the telephone, just call. Anyone? Bill, do you see anybody?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay, we don't see anyone with raised hands, and I'm going to close the public comments part of the meeting, and we move on to the approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
This is Robert. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Need a second. Okay, any questions or comments or changes? The motion by Elder Robert Burke and second by Elder Ramsey. All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are on to award of bid, course, and professional services, and item number 1. This is update and possible direction on award of 2 bids to Nelson Excavating and Sons LLC for Pheasant Branch Stream Bank stabilization bid work.
This is Mark. I'll move that we reject the bids and move forward with looking at rebidding in the end of 22 or 24 for 23 as recommended by finance.
Robert, I'd second the motion.
So the motion has been made, it has been seconded. Any questions or comments?
Yes,
This is Susan. Mark, could you explain your concerns or the discussion because we couldn't hear it?
The issue is that we're not going to be, FEMA's not going to let us do this without an environmental assessment. And the earliest that we believe that we can get an environmental assessment is sometime in the middle of 22. At this point, the bids have been out there for 60 days, so we need to act on them, right? And we don't think it's appropriate to try and string Nelson along with what they've quoted us, considering that we cannot move forward with any type of construction until FEMA agrees that everything is appropriate. At this point, it's looking like it's going to be sometime in 22 before FEMA will even, if everything goes right, it would be sometime in the middle of 22 if FEMA would approve everything. It's well outside the bid time, so we would have to go out to bid again. So at this point, if we think that FEMA gives us some indication that they would approve in 22, we can rebid it, or more likely than not, it would be a 23 item.
Okay, I have one question.
Go ahead.
And that's, we've got, in the next item, it's 2 projects. One is stream bank restoration, the other is trail. Both need FEMA approval. Could they be separated? And I'm curious about how much it would cost us for the city to go ahead and do the stream bank stabilization without FEMA funds.
This is Sean, Susan. I don't know if I'm coming through or not.
Yes, you are, Sean. Go ahead.
Okay. So to answer your questions, Susan, it's really 3 projects. There are 2 creek projects, one south of Century and the other north of Century, and the Trail and Bridges project. But FEMA pulled them all together because, they're in the same area, touching each other of Pheasant Branch. And that's what I think triggered the need for an environmental assessment on their end. So it isn't possible to separate those. Your second question was about what's the cost of hiring a consultant to do the environmental assessment?
No, actually, it wasn't the cost of hiring a consultant. It would be the cost of the project without getting reimbursed by FEMA for the project.
Oh, the cost, the bid cost.
Yes.
If none of it gets reimbursed. Golly, I don't
Correct.
remember offhand. We didn't complete the bidding process for the Trail and Bridges project. We did open bids, and we're trying hard to award them for the other 2, the creek projects. I don't remember offhand what the total of those 2 was, absent the Trail and Bridges. So I can't answer that question offhand.
Okay. My big concern is just getting the creek restored before we have any more floods or whatever. I see that as the most important. The bridges can wait.
Okay.
Susan, I think we've discussed before, and the concern is that if we move ahead unilaterally, we have no idea whether FEMA will ever reimburse us for this work.
Yeah, and that I'm aware of. I'm just wondering, for the creek stream banks, how much FEMA would be reimbursing us for, because so much of that was unconstructed and not eligible for FEMA funds.
Right, they haven't offered. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Plans. The sentiment of the council was that we wanted to do this with FEMA funds.
Right.
So I don't think that's changed. I understand your concern about the corridor, but I don't think that the sentiment has changed that we want to do this with FEMA funds. And FEMA is looking at this thing in a holistic way. We kind of have to ride that horse as far as it'll take us.
So Susan, you do have a valid question, and we had quite a bit discussion on that even today. So, but it's too late to do that now. So I do have a few questions for Sean. Sean, did you or somebody other on the staff had a chance to talk with Nelson?
I haven't talked with Nelson, but I know that Aaron Stieber, our consultant with Cardno, has been talking with them as we've been going through this process of trying to figure out contingencies that would work. They've been responsive in a favorable way to that. But this whole environmental assessment is fairly new to us, so I have not touched base with them about it yet.
Okay, so now we have two big grants, $900,000 from the county and $600,000 from DNR. I know the DNR agreed to let us use in 2022. Do we know if they would agree to do in 2023 and the same for the Dane County? Do we know, did anybody contact or do we have any information on that?
Aaron has been in contact with DNR staff. They did give us in writing that they would extend it through the end of calendar 2022. He asked if they would extend it to 2023, but he hasn't yet heard, or at least he hasn't passed it along to me yet if he did hear. He thinks that by the same logic that they were willing to extend it due to factors beyond our control, they would be willing to extend it further, but we do not have that in writing. I don't know about the county grant. What county grant is involved? I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, we have 600,000, no, 500,000 and 400,000, 900,000 grants from the county.
This is Matt Amundson. The county grants are to address the trail and bridge project.
Okay, thanks.
So Matt, do we have a deadline for using that money?
My most recent conversation with the county is they want to see the area restored. They know the challenges we're dealing with and trying to coordinate a lot of moving parts.
Okay, thank you. Any?
I have some information to answer a question from Alder West. I believe that because FEMA has linked the different projects of the two different sections of Stream Bank and the trails and bridges, if we move forward with work in that area, we're potentially jeopardizing funding for any of those three projects because they're all part of this environmental assessment process. And as far as the dollar amount we would be foregoing from FEMA, until they complete their review, we won't know for sure. But right now, their cost estimate for the Pheasant Branch Creek Stream Bank is a total cost of $1.7 million, and the federal share of that would be $1.2 million. We'll see what happens when we get the environmental assessment work on staff, but it's a large enough dollar amount that we didn't want to forego the potential for receiving that funding because of the large dollar amount, because we're trying to pull money from multiple different sources to get all of these projects completed.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That was very helpful.
Okay, any other questions from council members? Any other questions? Okay, if there are no questions, the motion is to reject the bid from Nelson. And all those in favor of that motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to miscellaneous. Item number 1, consideration and discussion of
Did we lose Gurdeep?
It sounds
Yes.
like it.
This is Mark. I'll recommend
failed
approval,
projects.
recommended by finance.
Ramsey, a second.
So the motion by Alder Sullivan, second by Alder Ramsey. So Bill or anybody else want to provide a short summary here?
I can give a short summary. So with FEMA's environmental assessment, we have two options. FEMA can hire a consultant to do the environmental assessment. If they go that route, they select the consultant, they manage the contract, they pay for 100%. We also have the option that we could go out on our own, select a consultant, hire them, pay the cost up front, manage the contract, and then submit their report to FEMA for FEMA's review. If we have an approved project at the end of that, we can then submit for reimbursement and would be potentially reimbursed for up to 87.5% of the cost, similar to reimbursement for the rest of the project. In discussing this at the staff level after the conference call with FEMA, our recommendation is that we let FEMA proceed with hiring the consultant for the environmental assessment. That avoids the need for the city to upfront the funds for that process. FEMA's familiar with this, they know what they're looking for, and hopefully it will help reduce questions on the back end if they have been involved in the process, rather than us going through all the work of preparing the report and then submitting it to FEMA and responding to their questions and follow up at that time. Potential downsides of letting FEMA control over the contractor. However, given the timeline that we're talking about here, we think that it may be just as expeditious to let FEMA go through and do that and try to cut down on that review process on the back end.
Any questions for Bill? Okay, if there are no questions, all those in favor of the motion to let the FEMA do the environmental assessment for the Pheasant Branch Creek, Steamback Trail and Bridge projects, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are on to next item number 2. This is the authorization to fill a vacant electrical inspector position.
This is Emily. I'll make the motion.
This is Robert. I'll second the motion. Fill the vacant electrical inspector position.
Okay, motion by Elder Kuhn, second by Elder Robert. Any questions or comments? So, Bill or Brian, you want to say a few words why we are doing it?
Again,
You want to say a few words about this item?
we had the.
Microphone, please.
It's being picked up by the
Oh.
microphone.
I apologize.
Our current electrical inspector and facilities manager has left for another city. And so that leaves us with a vacancy that will take place very soon. This is simply an authorization to go out and search, select, and replace that position with a new candidate.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion for the authorization to fill a vacant electrical inspector position, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to item number 3. This is the discussion and consideration concerning the city's pandemic response. Yeah?
Yeah, I can start the discussion here. Following the updated guidance from the CDC and Public Health Madison and Dane County that came out last week, we had a discussion at our staff meeting and also a discussion with City Administrator Mike Davis, Brian, myself, Larry Beckler, and Bill Morgan, our personnel attorney. We have decided as a staff, and like the administrator has put in place a mask requirement for employees. We felt that was appropriate given the recommendations that masks be worn indoors for both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. Since the memo came out in your packet, Dane County has now moved to an area of substantial transmission. So for that reason as well, we feel it's appropriate to have a requirement for masks for employees. At this time, we don't have a mask requirement in place for other visitors at city facilities. It's strongly recommended, but that is not something that's required. We wanted to put this on the agenda for discussion by the council in any direction, either related to masking, other pandemic response, as well as a discussion about how we want to handle meetings, both committee meetings as well as council and plan commission meetings. Things are changing rapidly, and this will probably be a standing item on agendas until the situation stabilizes. We laid out some of the information on what other communities have in response, but I just wanted to open it up for discussion in the council. We noted, and City Attorney Larry Beckford noted that there may be requirements that come down that we need to respond to, but we also thought, given the timeline or time lag between meetings, that we should both have a discussion about current situation and also, if things change, what is the interest level of the council in response.
Okay, Katie.
City able to enact a vaccine mandate on employees?
The city is able to enact a vaccine mandate on employees, taking into account the specific restrictions and limitations provided employees, both under Religious Freedoms and Americans with Disabilities Act. We would have to make specific accommodations if anyone in any of those categories objected to obtaining a vaccine, but we do have the ability to implement a mandatory vaccine.
Is there any discussion about bringing that into?
There was some discussion.
I think, with the information that came out, which is included in the updated memo to the package for the responses by City of Madison and by Dane County. So I think that is a discussion point. Part of the discussion today was that if there is interest in going down that route, we need to make sure that we have appropriate policies in place addressing the issues that Brian was talking about. We would have to have ways to confidentially manage the information and have information how we would report it. So it's not something that we would implement overnight, but we did start conversations on what would be involved in case there's interest or need to go to that level.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Or Bill or Emily?
I guess to follow up to that, you know if there's any, like, were folks volunteering that they were getting it all along? Like, at my workplace, we knew 40% of people because they came up to their boss and asked for leave for the shot. Because we were giving out admin leave to go, which was a choice. They got 4 hours, and then if they had a health issue response, then they got some extra time. But that was obviously my workplace, not automatically this workplace. Do you have a sense if, like, say, a quarter of people got it on the workforce, or maybe half?
I really do not. We did not have any systematic required or even recommended tracking mechanism for employees that chose to get the vaccine to report. At the department level, they may have a better sense of rough percentages, but even at the department level, other than potentially EMS and the police department, there isn't a tracking.
Yeah, because, Katie, just so you know, we would get about, I would say 50 or 60% of the agency, and they stopped counting. They figured that they were hitting sort of that herd immunity. So, and that way we weren't
With this variant, though, I think we're supposed to hit closer to 80.
Yeah. Okay, other questions or comments? Robert?
If we go back to virtual or all Zoom meetings, do we have to be under an emergency mandate to do that?
Well, my understanding is that we have that ability. The council has that ability if they choose to do that. And from the information I have seen from the League of Wisconsin municipalities, that's my understanding as well. We still have the emergency resolution in place for the city of Middleton. That's never been formally suspended. And I believe that would give us the ability to return to that. Larry Beckler has been very involved in these discussions. I don't want to speak for him. So Larry, if you want to comment on that question as well, that may be helpful.
Well, yes, it's clear that there may have been a time when we could have revoked the emergency declaration, but since we have not, we're in exactly the same position we've been in ever since it was declared. So we are under, I'm getting a terrible echo. But because we already have it, there isn't any reason for us to do anything separate at this time.
Okay, thank you, Larry. So, Robert, go ahead.
Susan, actually.
Susan, please go ahead. Susan?
Okay. I would like to suggest that we go back to virtual meetings, especially with the increasing rate of infections, which is, I mean, we've gone from up to, I forgot, we're not at the highest level, we're at the next to the highest level.
Right.
But that's happened within a day or so. And the reason I'm saying all virtual is this meeting tonight is so hard to hear, and it's very difficult. And if people are in council with masks on, it's hard to hear them. We've got all this background noise. It's just much more effective in person. And I would suggest we follow what the county is doing. I've talked to one of the supervisors, and they're not considering going back to anything other than virtual meetings until September.
Thank you, Susan. How, maybe those who are in favor, let's raise your hand that you think that.
Favor of.
Favor of going virtual.
Do you have a comment yet, Robert?
I couldn't hear that clearly.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, my comment is kind of addresses to what you were saying, Mr. Mayor, and Susan. I tend to agree. It was looking hopeful a month ago, and we started saying, let's try this hybrid thing. It's looking less hopeful at this moment, that things are on the right direction. So I guess my personal thought, I'm going to raise my hand when we get around to taking a straw vote to say what we'd like to do. I think going back to virtual meetings is a better solution at this time, given the facts that we're seeing right now.
So, do we need to make a motion or just,
Not really,
Right?
not a voting thing, is it?
They're asking for
Yeah.
direction, so
Yeah.
I think to be clearer, if there was a motion to virtual.
Sure.
And I think the other part is that we, just as a reminder that we would expect to follow Dane County Health's guidance on it.
Right.
okay.
We always allow people in the, who want to watch meetings, right? Isn't that what we've been doing? Anybody who wanted to?
Like when we were doing Zoom meetings, people still could show up in the.
In video. Jeremy was always here too, right?
No, this room at that time wasn't really open.
Okay.
It could just participate by Zoom
Zoom only.
or by telephone.
Okay.
Well, I think the broader issue, so that's one thing about meetings, but I think the broader issue is, at some point, is the city staff considering closing City Hall again? And closing some of the city buildings, like the senior center and the library? Or is that more of a Dane County?
I think that the situation where facilities were closed previously was in response to the direction from the Dane County Public Health. At this point, as staff, we have not been discussing closing city facilities, and I think we would be looking for direction from the council. If absent direction and a mandate from the state or the county, if that's something we wanted to do, we want direction from the council. We felt that putting a mask requirement in place for employees was something that could be done administratively as a workplace rule, but going beyond that, we wanted policy direction from the council. But I think direction about meetings, if there's a desire for some virtual meetings, that would be helpful. And if there would be, interest in having facilities open, but a masking requirement for the public, or potentially looking at closing facilities, we would want that direction from the council.
So here's the issue again, there's no enforcement mechanism for us. So we would really have to follow the county's rules with respect to closing buildings and requiring masks, right? No, we can't give somebody any type of sanction for coming into the building without a mask. So unless Dane County is willing to take that step, I think it's foolhardy for the city to get involved in that.
I don't think there's any plan to close any building. Larry, what would you say? Who has the authority if we could city council decide to close the city hall or senior center or other buildings?
The answer to that
Well,
is yes. I don't think I can tell you that.
I think two things I want to say. First is the fact that this is going to be an agenda item at every common council meeting, because my assumption is that things will change. They may get better, they may get worse. And so we're in a position where at the staff level, we wanted to make sure that the council was always aware and had input into questions like this. However, in terms of closing buildings, I would think that ordinarily that authority in the case of a true emergency would fall to the chief of police as the emergency government director if it was an absolute emergency. If it was less than that, I think what the council ought to consider doing is to authorize staff to be able to make a decision immediately rather than waiting to hold a common council meeting to close. So for example, if we went from our current level to the most extreme level, I assume no one would be upset if we close city facilities immediately. We're not going to stay open just because the council hasn't had a chance to meet. So I would suggest that you delegate that decision to city staff, but with the right at every council meeting to change it.
Larry, this is Susan.
Right.
I think you've got a really good idea. I would like to take it a step further for basically the rec programs, the senior center, and the library. For those programs where they're bringing in large numbers of people, they might want to think about discontinuing those. Not closing the building, but when you're bringing 30 or 40 people into a room for a couple of hours, that's not necessarily a safe thing to be doing.
Susan, the library is for the library board. I don't think we can dictate them that. Mark, you have something?
But we can do the senior center and recreation.
Yeah, we can do the senior center, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Larry, my understanding is that we've already given that power to the city administrator under the current emergency declaration. Is that not true?
I believe it's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we don't really need to do anything right now then.
Brian, were you gonna say something?
I was, so, in discussions today, we have already established a mask mandate for employees. We do not need state or county guidance or mandate to establish a separate mandate for visitors or customers or clients to city facilities. We can do that independently as a city. The question is, are you comfortable doing that without an overarching county or state mandate? But as a separate institution, you absolutely have the authority to either do that or delegate that to the city administrator to make that decision.
And how is that gonna be enforced?
No punitive penalties, but if someone refuses to mask, much like an aircraft or a private business, they're asked to leave. The trouble is, yeah, what are the real teeth we have there? Are we gonna wrestle them to the floor? I certainly hope not. But most people typically comply and support the request. It won't be all.
I think that's a good thought.
Can I ask if,
Yeah,
have
go ahead,
you-
Katie. Katie and, oh, well, Emily and then Katie.
thanks. Can I ask if people have started wearing masks in the building, the customers? And I say that because when I've gone to the grocery stores in the last week, almost nobody was wearing them a week ago. And over the course of a week, whenever I've popped into stores, it's almost half, if not 3/4. So is that kind of comparable?
Yes, we have seen an increase in mask wearing. I've been to the library a number of times this week to work with library staff. Customers at the library are oftentimes wearing masks, particularly children. Here at City Hall, as soon as staff began wearing masks, clients coming in typically would pull a mask out and put it on. So we have seen a follow leader, follow the example path that you're describing up to this point without directing it. So I don't think that directing it on board, but definitely.
Katie?
The only thing I was going to mention is that I saw Dr. Fauci on television today, and he was saying he didn't see an entire shutdown of the country like we had a year and a half ago, because so many of us are vaccinated. But he said, of course, this is all changing, and a new mutation may make that all different. So just to, say, hope is not lost. We're not going straight back to where we were, but I like giving the authority to different entities so they can make the choice.
Anyone else? Robert?
I think I would like to make an actual motion to say, let's go back into virtual meetings for the the near future, and that'd be my motion.
This is Susan, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
And the only question there is, right now, I guess I'm speaking for the Common Council. The discussion maybe for this is, how does that trickle down to other committees? If we go fully virtual, do all committees go fully virtual? Do we leave that up to, okay, we all go fully, okay, that was my motion.
Yeah, and I will agree.
This was only Plan Commission and City Council. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to have the Plan Commission and the other committee meetings virtual?
No, that's not his motion. His motion was for all committees.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, so.
Let's just make it clear, this is for all committees.
Common Council.
We're starting after tonight, or as soon as reasonably feasible, these meetings go virtual.
All those in favor of that motion say aye.
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 So that's the aye, okay, all right. Okay, we are on to.
The second motion is that needs to happen here is that, to reiterate that the city should follow Dane County recommendations.
Yes.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further question or comments?
As a follow-up comment, if we're following Dane County, are you giving authority to anybody to make that decision when we're not in council? Like to the
Mike Davis already has that authority.
You're right, I apologize. Thank you.
Okay, any other further question or comments? All those in favor of the motion to follow the Dane County guidelines, say aye.
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 Just wanted a clarification. So currently, my understanding is that Dane County is strongly recommending but not requiring that for visitors. Is that the council's intent through that motion? Okay.
I feel good
If,
with
if
that.
interrupts,
Brian?
my sense has been, it's not the action of the county board that we're following, but rather the medical advice issued by Madison-Dane County Department of Public Health and the CDC.
Yeah.
So that was your motion, my.
Yes, it was the consolidated, we got, so the Dane County Public Health.
Well, motion was the public health, Dane County Public Health guidelines. Okay. Any other questions or comments with respect to this item? We move on to item number 4.
Was there anything else we missed that city staff is worried about?
I don't know if there's anything else that needs action tonight. As Larry indicated, the intent is to have this item as a standing item on agenda. So if the situation changes, we can do another update and discuss anything appropriate at the next meeting.
And we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, item number 4, American Rescue Plan funding options concept for stormwater infrastructure projects. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Just to get started, if you would like. So included in the packet is a list of potential stormwater infrastructure projects that staff feels could be eligible for funding.
Bill, you are very difficult to hear.
I'll move closer to the microphone. So included in the packet is a list of potential stormwater infrastructure projects that staff feels could be eligible for funding under the American Rescue Plan Fund. As we did with other items, tonight we just want to provide this for informational purposes and get any initial reactions. We are trying to look at all of the available potential projects and uses of ARPA funding. The intent is that we would be running ARPA-funded projects through our budget process, which would give the ability to weigh in and prioritize individual projects. But the list included in your packet identifies projects in priority order, and part of the consideration was looking at projects that would address a need in the community that don't have a strong alternative funding source, such as TIF district funding or the types of projects that have been supported by stormwater utility. So there's no action required tonight, but if there's any feedback on the project list, we can take that and incorporate that as we work on the budget process.
Does anybody have any questions? Please raise your hands.
So,
Go ahead, Mark.
During finance, we brought up the fact that what seems to be missing here are efficiency projects that could be potentially brought forward by the water utility. And it was just a reminder that to the extent that we can take costs out of the utility, that's really a tax savings to our constituents. So that, as we come to make decisions about these, I think we should look favorably on projects that take expense out of city finances here, right? So any place that we can save money, especially at a utility, is a tax cut to our citizens.
And Mark, to make sure I understand, not exactly an example, but what you're saying is a one-time capital expense to recoup ongoing savings for many years to come. Is that a reasonable?
For example, right, if we could switch out pump systems for the water utility that were more efficient, right, we would save electricity. So as an ongoing expense, they would be lower, right? So if it just took, as an example, I'm sure some of the pumping systems that we have are quite dated. If we upgraded them to current technology, theoretically they're more efficient and we would derive savings from them, from the operation of them. That's a tax cut to our citizens, and we should look favorably on those kinds of projects.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that clarification.
Susan or Luke, you have any questions? Okay, and this is also, provides you to something to think about, so. Okay, we are going to move on to the ordinances.
Mr. Mayor, I request that we move this item till after the closed session activity.
Okay. Is that okay with everyone else?
Yes.
Let's go to the ordinances. This is the second reading. This is the rezoning from B3 to B2. This is Nicholas Hannah 3207 Laurel Lane. This is the second reading now.
This is Susan. I recommend approval.
Need a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? This is actually an excellent project. Okay, if there are no questions or comments, this is all those in favor of the motion to approve the rezoning from B3 to B2 for Nicholas Hannah 3207 Laurel Lane, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, well, I didn't hear from Luke, so it's 7-0. Okay, we're on to resolutions. Resolution number 1, item number 1, resolution number 2021-39. Supporting a Public Service Commission of Wisconsin Office of Energy Innovation grant application to explore the feasibility of a renewable electricity microgrid to serve buildings in Middleton.
This is Susan. I move approval.
Need a second.
Second.
So you probably read that it's, this item is coming from this Sustainability Committee. Does anybody else want to add anything more? And this is simply an application. Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution number 2021-39, which is supporting the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin Office of Energy Innovation grant application, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Now, Luke, you're there, right?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Now, how
There we
about for the last motion, did you vote as well?
Yes, I was in favor.
8-0. Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. We are going to move the item for the committee appointments. So there's the Gretchen Erdman Herman for Planning Commission and Kathy Hobby to Sustainability Committee. Need a motion to approve.
This is Emily, I'll make that motion.
Second.
This is Susan. I'll second.
Okay, she can get it. Yep.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the appointments of Gretchen Erdman Herman to Plan Commission and Kathy Bobby to Sustainability Committee, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, need a motion to go into closed session, and the reason we moved that item there is because they are somewhat related to what we are going to discuss in closed session. Okay, need motion to go into closed session.
This is Susan. I move to go into closed session.
Motion by second.
I'll
by
second.
Robert.
Yeah, or something.
All those in favor of the motion to go into closed session, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Okay.
We still have 3 call-in people online.
Kelly, you will take care of that? I'm working on it. Okay, thank you.
So the weather was nice today.
Yeah,
Beautiful day in Middleton.
City staff and elected officials
And
and the city attorney.
Bill, we're still recording.
Yes.
I do not envy you, by the way. Lessons to.
Could somebody open this door on this side, please? Thank you.
So we are recording and everyone has been readmitted to the meeting.
Okay. Is everybody ready? So we are going to discuss are we ready? So we are going to discuss the ordinances. This is the first reading. Final action may be taken upon approval of motion to suspend rules under section 1.07 Middleton General Ordinances. Item number 1, rezoning from B3 to PDD, GIP, Rules Company, redevelopment, multiple parcels.
This is Robert. I'd like to make a motion to defer this item, and I'll speak to that when we get to the comment section, or the discussion.
And the second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Robert Burke, second by Tyler Sullivan. Okay, Robert, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a Public Works meeting a week ago Monday, and I know that's not a lot of time for them to make changes or anything, but there's just so many questions I have about what they're saying the parkland will be, and there's a GIP submittal staff comments document that's 14 pages, and I keep going to the second to the last page, which is page 13 of 14, and in Public Works, they said that they're willing to change this. They understand that all the stuff they showed in the park is just there to kind of give people an idea what a park could look like. It's not indicative of what the park would have to have in it. That's really up to the city. But even just the layout of the outline of the park has me asking questions. I mean, what they're considering parkland is parking structures on the street. They're considering parkland a sidewalk that goes, maybe like, I don't know, 100 feet north of the rest of the park. They have a building that they're not donating to the park. It's called Phase 7 building. That's in the center of the park with no access to it. And then they claim that the whole parkland that total public land is 5.1 acres or 27% of the property. And there's just, I feel like I can't make an educated decision tonight without what I think of is reasonable assumptions, reasonable drawings of what is the property that they're suggesting donating to the city. And because of that, I feel like there's just a little more I want to see from the developers to clarify from my mind what it is that I'm voting on tonight. So that's why I made a motion to defer.
Thank you, Robert.
I would like to add that maybe it would be appropriate to request from the developer that they identify the specific parcels which they are proposing to dedicate as parkland. So that would help us out. So if they could enumerate what those are and acreage and where they lay out on these proposed drawings, I think it might help people better visualize what they are proposing and help us understand, just what they're trying to do.
I think that would be welcome.
I would like to make an amendment to your motion, or to amend your motion to include that request.
I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, so I will take your friendly amendment if our meeting minutes taker knows. Basically, I'm asking for, in addition to kind of a little detail about what exactly is being given to us for a park and get rid of some of the weird assumptions. Add in exactly what parcels are being, proposed as dedicated to public, or, parkland. So hopefully the note taker got that. So that's my amended motion. Do you accept my amendment?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is Luke and then Susan West. And I know that Terrence and Jake, I'm going to get to you, but first the city council. So the Luke and then Susan.
Wonderful, thank you. So I don't necessarily disagree, Robert, but I think because this has now come up a couple of times, what I'm hopeful for, in addition to what perhaps you and Mark have outlined, if there are any other remaining questions, concerns, comments, what I want to be cognizant of is, if for the developer comes back in 2 weeks from now with the recommended or the requested information pertaining to parkland, if there indeed is another question that we may have at that particular point. So as part of this discussion, and perhaps if there are any other remaining questions, we could even further amend your motion to ensure that we are asking for all of the information that we need to be able to make a firm decision 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, Luke. Robert, or?
I'm okay with that, although that's a little bit of a vague ask of the developers to say, give me all the information I need to make my decision, because I don't know that they know what I need, because I don't always know what I need. But
Totally, I'm saying what we know, and I'm asking, I'm not asking, this isn't an ask for the developer, I'm asking of the council. So if there are remaining concerns amongst the 8 of us on the council, that we make those clear now as part of this discussion, and in anticipation of this agenda item coming back up 2 weeks from now.
Sure. I have an email already kind of started that I'd be happy to share with the developers, but it was mostly the parkland stuff. It did include something that we talked about in Public Works, which is the entryway to a parking lot or the whole property has, it looks like it's 15 to 20 feet closer to Parmenter Street than it currently is. And, I know the developers saw that at Public Works and agreed they're going to look into that, but I would like to have some of that kind of stuff developed too, just to make sure that we understand the whole property, but, a lot of my questions revolve mostly around the parkland.
Any other, Susan?
Yeah, I agree with both Luke and Robert. And I think it's really important that we get the entrance in front of the Bruce Company back to where it should be. They agreed to doing it at Public Works, but it would be nice to actually see it in the correct document.
Anyone else from the city council here? Anyone else from the city council? Susan, you still have your hand up?
Oh.
No, Terrence and Jake, it's really for the city council. If you have any clarification, either of you can take 30 seconds, but it is really for the city council discussion here right now. You can choose who wants to speak, but it would be very short, and if you have any clarification about the motion or anything else, very quickly.
Yeah, I just like to talk to, I know, so we had went to the Conservancy Lands Committee, the Public Works, and the Parks and Rec Committee. We gathered all the feedback we could. That was over the course of last week and yesterday. And we worked with our architects throughout the course of that. And actually, based on your guys' input and those committees' input, we put together a plan to show you guys today. We didn't have time to submit it, obviously, just because of the short notice. But if I could share my screen here, I can show you.
That gives you enough time to put together for the next meeting, right? Okay, any other questions or comments from the city council? The motion is to defer, and, Bill, you want to read those, motion, or everybody knows the motion?
I think, Mayor, it'd be beneficial for the council to take a look at this, just because, I mean, we want feedback. So next time when we come back, hopefully we can get approval. I mean, this is, the Bruce Company is trying to move forward as quickly as they can to open up in time for their busy season. I would love to share our screen and the plans that we've worked on, so you guys can take a peek and give us feedback on them.
Yeah, and if there's any way, this is Seth from the Bruce Company too. I'd love to get a quick chance to get some clarity and make some points.
Luke, you have any questions or comments, or this your hand up is from last time?
Yeah, and this was just, I just wanted to 100% pertain and put a bow on previously that Robert was going to communicate, because you mentioned that most of your things, I just want to make sure that all of your concerns are going to be addressed in the email that you're sending to them within, can we say within the next 24 hours?
Sure, it's already drafted, so I can do that.
Excellent.
So, do you want, yes, Emily, you want to see anything, or?
Yeah, I would like to see, like, just for a minute or two, Jake, your updates, because I'm hearing a lot of concerns, so if you've already done like 80% of it, I'd like to know that versus you're a little there.
Okay, so he
Yeah.
got it on the screen. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And I think the feedback we got from the committees was beneficial. So you guys are looking at my screen right now. So just to start off, to answer Mark's question, the specific parcels that we would be dedicating for the parkland, the entire area is going to be replatted. There will be new lot lines. It's hard to, in our plan, there's a building right here. It crosses over lot lines. So it's hard to tell you the specific parcels that will be dedicated. But it would be this general southern portion area, just to touch on that. And then to touch on what Robert had said, there was two main items that he brought up was, the detail of the park. As you can see here, we've pretty much removed all the details of the park, and we wanted to make it clear to everybody at the council that wasn't at those committee meetings we were at. The park details that we had in there were just simply the city's plan that was drawn up by Van de Waal, and they gave that to us, and we had thrown it in there basically to mimic what the city had drawn up for the parkland. Once it's dedicated and the city buys the Latitude graphics lot, the city can do with the park as they please in terms of design. So we took all that, the designs, the paths, everything out of the park. As you can see, we did remove the, Robert, you're referring to the lines of the parking stalls, and we had the parking stalls included just because they would be used by users of the park. And then we had this path included as well, because if you remember, there was a bridge right here that connected the other side of the creek to the path that extends, all the way east and all the way west. And we just wanted that to be an extension, this path to be an extension of the park, and hopefully make its way down Laura Lane at some point, and we just cut it off right at the lot line. But you can see there's public easements here, so for use by the public to use the park and to access the public dog walk. And then the other item, Robert, you brought up and that was addressed in Public Works is where this drive aisle is to enter the Bruce Company. So or based upon the plat, that drive aisle had to be 75 feet from Parmenter Road. And this is 75 feet from Parmenter Road. And it's also in the location of the current driveway to access into the Bruce Company. So we did make that modification. You can see there's no parking stalls here on the left, and we had to modify our building slightly, shrinking it, but that is the current location of the Bruce Company drive aisle. And so these are, it was, I guess, a short time frame from the committee meetings until now, but these are the changes we made. You can see the parkland is 4.6 acres still, which is 24% of the site. these are the changes we made, and we'd love, your feedback. And honestly, I think just because of the time crunch here, we would love approval tonight, if that's still possible, but I'd be open to answering any questions.
So JK gives you time to work this whole thing out, since the two committee just met in past 2 days. So I think, does anybody has any quick questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Seth. It'd be great are you looking for the council, Mayor, or can I add something?
Well, please keep it short. It's really for the council. Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Seth, if you
Well,
have some really brief comments.
this is it's such a challenging process. I appreciate everybody's patience, but this is crazy run around back and forth of getting recommendations, giving guidance, trying to make any concessions and adjustments that were recommended and suggested by city, by the different, I've been in every single meeting, and I hear this just run around, constant finger pointing, and that's a high challenge of us trying to come to some consensus and clarity of what's in the interest or what's wanted or needed. We put things on there to try to give a better visibility of what we're doing from a park standpoint, and that with it getting it from different parties, and now we're taking everything back off to try to appease what we have there and what we don't. This whole property, we run the whole property, every square inch of this property we run in our current operation. We have fuel pumps on here, we have a shop, we have a large fleet. We have a major operation outside of the store. It's actually a larger operation than the store. I think the store is a value add, and I think it will be a very good long-term opportunity and connection as an outdoor living business in Middleton long-term. We want that, but we have to go through a major process in order to transition and split and do any variance from our retail garden center to the rest of our operation. Between, you name it. This is a very extensive process after I just get approval from the council. So if I can't even get approval from the council, I don't even know if I can make this progression and move forward. I'm going to have to look at different options. I'm really struggling with making any progress here because I'm constantly delayed and constantly getting finger pointed and right back to the same spot I started. So I'm sorry that I'm showing some frustration here, but I'm not getting any clarity on what next steps are.
Well, thank you, Sage. You can see all the committees and the council and the plan commission, they like the project, and there are things which need to be worked out, and the public works provided you the input, CLC provided you the input, last night PRFC, and now, the elders have made some things, some comments which need to be addressed, and it gives you 2 weeks, and you should be able to handle it. So, any other questions or comments from the city council? Any other questions or questions?
I'll just say, they did address a lot of the things I wanted to see, so I do appreciate that, and thank you for sharing it with us tonight. Still a little confused, I'll just say, about the fact that the Phase 7 building is still, there's a public easement there, but it's not even connected by the driveway. The driveway belongs to the park, according to this, and then there's the public easement of the parking spot over to the right-hand side, that if that's parkland, again, I guess I don't know whether, it feels like somebody's telling me, well, you have to put something here, and I guess I want to understand from somebody, whether that's the city's decision of what to put there because it's public land, or if there's something that we're being constrained when we vote on our GIP, whether I'm being constrained to say, oh, you guys agreed that there was going to be some public easement here on parkland, because I don't really understand the purpose of some of these public easements. So I can put that in my email as well. I can modify my email and get something out to you guys tomorrow.
Jake, we are getting to the finish line and work with the staff and address these concerns, and we are there. So, now, Susan, you have your hand up, and Luke?
I guess I would just like it to show which land you have control of and which you don't. Because you haven't bought the latitude graphics yet.
Okay.
And that's being shown as parkland. Is that part of what you're dedicating?
Hey, can you flip back to the other slide and show the latitude graphics on there?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't be dedicating the latitude graphics site. We're not purchasing that. The city is purchasing the latitude graphics site.
So are you including that in the parkland dedication, the number of acres?
Yes, because that is it's just listed as parkland, so that is part of the park, yeah. And what would happen is, because we have a building right here that takes an L shape like this, there would be a land swap where we would give up this half of, the Sampler Square site, and we would get a little bit of land right, sorry, I can't outline it, but a little bit of land right here where the building juts out into latitude graphics.
Okay, I guess I'm just having trouble with the math in terms of where is it 5 acres of land you're dedicating to the park?
We have 4.6 acres of total public land. I don't know what we're dedicating. I think the reason that we've hit 4.6 acres is that, based off working with staff and the Parks Committee and Matt Amundsen, we were asked to hit more than 3 acres of public land. In terms of what we're actually dedicating the Bruce Company through the Sampler Square lot and this whole lot over here, I don't know that exact acreage, but the whole entire development in itself will be 4.6 acres of public park.
Okay, I would need a legal opinion on, does the latitude graphics, is that part of what they can dedicate to parkland? That would be a question.
Yeah, I think they're not saying that they're dedicating it, they're saying that's parkland, but I think we as the city council, kind of want to have some of this stuff spelled out for us. It's like, what land do you own? What land do you want to swap if like the latitude graphics has land that you don't have and you want to swap some property? We want kind of some of the stuff spelled out, and then what portion of the public land? I get that it's 4.5 acres, it looks like, or maybe 4 or 6. It's really small, I can't tell. But we would kind of like things spelled out for us as what portion of that is land that the Bruce Company is dedicating versus how much of this is assumed that Latitude Graphics property is dedicating this, and what's the swap between those two properties. And the more you spell this stuff out for us, the more we can get our heads around it. That's all.
It does need to be clearly spelled out. Larry, do you have anything to add or say, or is there any legal issues here? Larry Bangler?
I do not.
Okay, and I guess I don't want to end off on any type of a negative note. I mean, I will say, this is awesome. You've given me a lot of what I was asking for, but there's a few new questions that come up from what you're showing me, so I'll send you an email and we can try to hammer out some of the last few things so that hopefully there's fewer surprises, fewer needs for as much discussion at a future meeting, because some of this stuff gets hammered out in the interim by a back and forth. Because I think that's the goal here, is to get this thing to move forward. We just need to understand what it is we're being shown, and sometimes it's just a little confusing to us.
Yeah, we all have the same goal to make it successful. Luke?
Does it make sense, Robert, then because this is going to require 2 distinct readings, that we can run 2 parallel processes, one of which is an initial, reading, the first reading, which would then be in conjunction with the additional answers that you are seeking from the Bruce Company and the developer, so that we can make a firm decision, again, going back to the timing issue, 2 weeks from now.
I'm not willing to change my motion tonight, I guess, I would say.
I think there's, you know,
Mark, go ahead.
the answer is that if we feel it's appropriate, we could waive a second reading if all of our answers are all of our questions are answered.
Fair.
I don't think we're there yet. I think we need to defer this and then see what happens in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Luke, you have a good point, but Mark has a good point too, that, you know, it could be handled quickly if everything is answered. So, any other questions or comments from the city council? And, okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Need a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion. I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Have a great evening. And the next meeting, remember, will be virtual.